There's something about film that creates a warm, almost nostalgic feel. This is why a lot of people are going for this look recently. But shooting film isn't cheap or easy, so a lot of people are grading digital footage to look like film. There's a lot of characteristics that contribute towards this film look, such as the negative stock, the print process, and the way it was exposed. And this all makes footage that's shot on film have its own unique look. I'm going to show you how to create that film look in Davinci Resolve using Dehancer, a film-like colour grading plugin. And we'll be using my custom power grade to create this. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make 5 nodes, and I'm going to rename all of them. The first one is going to be exposure, the second will be white balance, then it's colour space transform, Dehancer, and another colour space transform. So we'll go on to the first colour space transform node, and we're going to add a colour space transform. So this has to match your camera, basically. So for me, I'm going to go Rec 2020, and I'm going to actually go for Arilog C3. For me, that matches Fuji F-Log 2 the best, so I'm just going to go with that, but you would just choose whatever input gamma you shot in. Then we'll go for Davinci Wide Gamut and Davinci Intermediate. Now we're going to go on to the second colour space transform, add a colour space transform, and the input colour space and gamma has to match the output colour space and gamma of the previous node. So that would be Davinci Wide Gamut, Davinci Intermediate, and then we're going to convert this to Rec 709, which would be Rec 709, and the output gamma is going to be Rec 709A. So now we can move on to our Dehancer node, and for that we're going to obviously have to add in the Dehancer effects, drag that over to the node, and straight away you can see it's applied an effect to it. It's already messed with a few of the settings by default. We don't want it to look like that, and the best thing that you can do is basically just start from scratch. So we'll scroll to the bottom, and in options it says disable all tools. That just resets it. As you can see, if you disable this node, it has no changes because we've just completely reset Dehancer, and it's best to start from scratch. So I'm just going to close all these to make it easier. So we'll start on inputs. So for source, we're actually going to go with DVR WG Intermediate, which is obviously matching the colour space transform. So yeah, that matches how we've transformed the image in the colour space transform. We're going to close input for now and go to the film tab. And this is basically the film stock that we would be shooting on. It's trying to emulate that. So let's enable it, and straight away you can see it's changed the image. There are lots of different film stocks to choose from. The one that works best for what we've shot is Kodak Vision 3 200T. So you can see it's already changed the image slightly. There's a lot more we can do to make it look how we want it to look. So let's actually go to the print tab and enable this. And this is obviously the whole process of when you're printing film. It obviously gets printed, and this is going to be the kind of effect that we're going for. And for me, I'm going to go for Kodak 2383. This is one of my favourites. We'll close print for now, we'll be coming back to that again. So before we make any more changes, what I'm actually going to do is go to my exposure and white balance nodes and alter these just to make sure they're how they need to be. So for exposure, we're going to have a look at our scopes and just make sure the levels are where they need to be. So I'm going to actually lower the brightness a little bit because it is a bit bright, then lower the shadows and actually bring the highlights up very slightly. And I'm quite happy with how that's looking now. For the white balance, we're going to make a couple of changes to that as well. It's looking a little bit warm, so I'm going to go slightly down with that and actually adjust the tint as well. Now we'll go back onto the Dehancer node and go to the Film Developer tab. We'll enable this, and I'm wanting some more contrast in the image. So we'll go to Contrast Boost and then make this a bit higher. That looks good to me. The same with the colour, there's not much saturation here, so we'll up the colour boost as well. And that's starting to look better already. Now back onto the print tab, we'll have a look at the target white. We can either warm up the image or cool it down. That looks about right to me. Obviously we can change the exposure as well, but we already had our own tab to do that, so I'll leave that where it is because I'm happy with that. Tonal contrast, we can either up that or lower that, and then we can look at colour density. This basically adds a bit more saturation, but specifically in the skin tones, so we're going to raise that up a little bit. Saturation, I'm going to leave it 100. You can make it lower, but obviously that just gets rid of the saturation. But I'm liking where that's looking now. Now we'll go on to film compression and enable. Straight away that makes a huge difference. So impact brightens and darkens the highlights. So we'll move that to the left. And then white point does the same as impact, but this is more in the white points. And we'll have it about there. Tonal range affects the contrast in basically the tones. Obviously you can make it higher or lower. For me, I'm just going to leave it where it is. And then we have colour density, which slightly affects the saturation in the colours. We're going to leave that as it is and have a look at the saturation in another tab. Now we're going to go to the expand tab and enable that. And basically it's just the black points and white points. You can make the black points brighter or darker. For us, we're going to make them very slightly darker. And then the white points, we're going to actually make very slightly brighter as well. Now we can close that tab and go over to the colour head tab. Let's enable this. Now we can add or subtract yellows, blues, magentas, greens, cyans and reds throughout the whole image. For me, I think I'd like a little bit more green in this image. So I'm going to very slightly move it to the right. This is very sensitive, so I'm only going to be really subtle with this. Now we'll go into shadows tone. This basically makes the shadows warmer or cooler. And for me, I'm going to bring this down a little bit so then we have more contrast, so that the shadows are more blue and then the skin tones are more orange, which is slightly towards that teal and orange look. Midtones tone, again, this is making your midtones warmer or cooler. We're going to make them a little bit warmer and go to 10. So we can close this tab. Now we've finished pretty much everything in terms of contrast and saturation. So now we're going more towards the kind of film characteristics. So let's go on to film grain and enable this. So there's different millimeters and ISOs to mess about with. If you go for a smaller millimeter, then the film grain is going to be bigger. If you go for a higher ISO, then there's going to be more grain. So for example, 8mm 500, you're going to have lots of grain and the grain's going to be really big. Let's zoom in so you can see that even more. Whereas if we went with 65-50, there's not that much grain and the grain that's there is really small. So for me, I want kind of like a middle ground, and what I want is 35-50. So you still have that bit of grain, but it's not too over the top or distracting. You can also mess about with the amount, so you can decrease that slightly or increase it, but that kind of is the same as just changing the millimeter and ISO. So for me, I'm going to leave the amount where it is, and 35 ISO 50 works perfect for me. Now we'll go onto the halation tab and enable that. So it's kind of similar again, where the smaller the film size, the more halation you get. And then we also have no remjet. Let's show a difference between standard and no remjet. There is more halation when you have no remjet compared to if you have without no remjet. So no remjet has a stronger effect on halation. So I'm going to go with 35mm super no remjet. I'm going to play about with the amplify. I'm going to bring it down very slightly. Next is bloom, so we'll open that and enable it. Again, this is the same way, the smaller the film size, the more bloom you get. I'm going to stick to 35mm, but I'm going to actually up the amplify very slightly. And that's already starting to look a lot more film-like. So we can add things like film damage, which is kind of like scratches and different imperfections that you would get from, obviously, film. I'm not going to have any of that. You can have film breath as well, which is the subtle changes in exposure, contrast and colour, which you'd get from film moving through a camera or a projector. We're not going to use that either. It is there if you do want it. Gate weave, that's like a subtle shaky movement, which is when film moves slightly left and right as it gets pulled through the camera, but we're going to leave that off as well. You can also have overscan, which has the different kind of film borders, which you get from things like Super 8 and 16mm. We're going to leave that off. And then the last thing that I'm going to add is vignette. So we'll click on that tab, enable it, and if you go into mask mode, you can see where the vignette is. So you can actually make it bigger, smaller, add more of a feather to it, change the aspect ratio as well. Well, let's center that. I don't know why that was off to the side. So obviously you can make it so the vignette actually makes the edges brighter or darker. Then you can also change the size of that and the feather. I'm going to have the feather about here. I'm also going to change the size of that. And for me, that's too much of a vignette effect, so I'm going to actually lessen that slightly. And that is how you achieve the film look.
Thank you for watching the video. All the footage that you've seen has been graded using Dehancer. If any of you are interested in using Dehancer, I'll drop a link down below with my discount code JamieNormanDOP, where you'll get 10% off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.